I'm the big bugbear. I don't. Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Father Aaron. Welcome to the Dungeon Minister. I get bigger with that every time, I think. Yeah. I'm the Dungeon Minister. Anyhow, our heroes have tracked down the goblins and killed them. Hopefully, and I emphasize hopefully, meaning that none of those goblins will go back and report the presence of the heroes to the main goblin horde. Well, we're pretty sure that those goblins aren't going to report to anyone. They're dead. But they don't know for sure how many goblins there had been. They didn't get a good count when they were in the village, and, there may have been other goblins posted along the coast, right? So, they do know that there were more archers present at the ambush on the coast than had escaped the village alive. So either some of the melee weapon bearing goblins had taken up the bow later on, or there were other goblins around. So they don't know. Maybe a messenger was sent to alert the rest of the group, the rest of the goblins. They are not sure. They're also not quite sure what they want to do. Should they return to the village? Return to the village and then go out to Giant's Tomb Island and find that magic spear, if it even exists. It was a legend, right? It may not exist at all, but should they go there and try to find that spear? That would help Skane to defeat Morag. That also, though, would give Skane a very powerful weapon, which he could then use against them. They're not entirely sure if they want to do that. Or should they simply continue on the road they're on and head north, bypassing the goblins if they can, and ally themselves with Skane without the spear and attempt to defeat Morag that way? The session starts with some back and forth on this subject. They do eventually decide they will go back to the village and head out to Giant's Tomb Island. The plan is that they're going to ask the villagers either to loan them a boat that they could use or to sail them out there, one way or the other. Touchberry thinks it would be better to go at night and steal a boat or borrow a boat, but the others veto that. So they're going to head back, but first they're going to make camp. It's later in the day, and especially after the project of collecting all the goblin bodies, especially the ones up the cliff, and hurling them out into the great northern sea, and stuffing them full of rocks, their pockets and whatnot full of rocks, so they sink. This all took time. It's late. They're injured, especially after the Hydra, and so they want to rest. Fine. All right. At this point, the DM decides it might be interesting to work in a little something extra. Just borrow a boat and go out to the island. That's kind of pedestrian. Let's see if we can make this kind of cool. And I remembered a legend that I read about, and I wish I remembered which village it is. If you know what village this is, I think it's in England, potentially Scotland. But if you know what village this is, tell me, where the local folklore holds that once a year, the sailors who had died in the village, the sailors rise from their graves, or their ghosts rise from their graves, and go down to the waterfront and head out to sea. I thought that image was so cool. Ghosts assembling to go sailing again. I thought that was such a neat idea, so I'm stealing it. All right. There they are camping, and you remember there was this strange sort of, plinth, this sort of obelisk kind of thing with runes carved on it. Well, there they are camping at night, and I roll. All right. Whose watch will this happen in? It is going to happen in Bob Johnny's watch. There you are, I say, watching the camp and looking up and down the coast, keeping an eye on the sea because things have popped out of it recently. And suddenly you hear this moaning, humming music. Strange, eerie, otherworldly. Then you notice the runes on that standing stone are glowing. Just faintly at first, but they grow and grow in intensity. At this point, Bob Johnny wakes up his companions. They grow in intensity, and a light starts to shine out of them, a beacon shooting out across the great northern sea. What on earth is going on? As you watch, into the light of that beacon, coming from the east and sailing west, is a ship. It looks like a Viking longship. That sort of ship is what we're talking about, sailing past, silently. Now, it's a long way away. It's very far out. You wouldn't be able to hear it. You wouldn't be able to really even hear the people on board. But it becomes eerily silent. And it glides along. And then it's gone. And the light from the runes dims and extinguishes. Okay. Well, back to sleep, everyone. The next day, they wake up, they have breakfast, memorize spells, and they take off. Unsettling, though, that ship. Oh well, they travel back. Eventually, they come to the village. I roll for wandering monsters as they go. Nothing else significant happens. They return to the village. Now, when they come back to the village, they don't find the warmest reception, because the villagers are really worried about what the goblins are going to do. And they say, we killed the goblins, we didn't let them get back, but what's going to happen, right? Because eventually the rest of the goblin tribe is going to notice this group missing, right? So what's going to happen? They're very, very afraid of this. So as they attempt to ask, how do we get to Giant's Tomb Island? And they're pointing and Giant's Tomb, and trying to say this in Goblin, which is unsettling anyway. As they're trying to communicate this, it's just a wall. No. Well, eventually, the old man, he's sort of the shaman, he's sort of the priest, he's sort of the cultural leader of the village, while the chief, yes, that's you. The chief is the political military leader. The shaman is more the cultural, spiritual leader. He comes out and talks to them. And what is it you want to do? Well, we want to go out to Giant's Tomb Island. Oh, you cannot go there. None of our sailors will take you there. The waters around it are dangerous. Well, what do you mean dangerous? They are haunted. Haunted water? No sailor can come close. Without any explanation, no great winds, no rocks. Things happen to ships that get too close. No one will take you. Well, isn't there a way to get to Giant's Tomb Island? The only way I know of is the way of the dead. The way of the dead. Once a month at the full moon, the dead rise and go to Giant's Tomb Island. Whoa, what? What, every month this happens? Yes, at the full moon, which is in 5 days. Well, that was convenient, wasn't it? In 5 days, the dead will rise. You will see it if you are here. They rise from their grave and walk to the dock. Each pays a toll, the toll of the dead. And then they get on their ship. And at that point, we saw the ship! It is sometimes seen in the days leading up to the full moon. You saw the ship of the dead then. You must have seen death in your life. Which, yes, I stole from Harry Potter and the whole coaches pulled by horses. Okay. You must have seen death in your life. Yeah, we've seen a lot of it, unfortunately. So, the ship of the dead, but that's like a ghost ship, right? We can't get on that. The ship is solid enough. You could. So, If we wait here for 5 days, on the night of the full moon, the ghost ship is going to dock at that dock, and we can get on. You must pay the toll. What's the toll? And they're thinking it's going to be a human heart or, a soul or something. No, a silver coin. Oh, we have gobs. Sure, okay, right? So that's what they decide to do. They stay just outside of the village, and over a couple of days, the villagers sort of warm up to them. Never Ulrich, though. He does not like them, and he is very upset to see them back. He was hoping they'd be killed by the goblins along the way, though he does have the common sense not to go and report them again, because he's pretty sure if he tried, they'd kill him, and they probably would. Anyway, so they kind of ingratiate themselves by being friendly and helpful here and there and that kind of stuff. Touchberry uses his sword to heal anyone who gets any injuries or anything, that kind of stuff, right? So 5 days later, this is the day, and the village is clearly excited. This is their once-a-month ritual. This is their once-a-month religious event. And so for that day, the whole day is a sort of day of festival, right? There's lots of food, there are songs, children play games and things like that, all sorts of fun stuff. And as the evening comes along, they build a large bonfire in the clearing of the village, and they gather in a large circle around it, and they sing and things like that. Of course, the players have no idea what the words are, because they're not singing in Goblin, they're singing in their own, the Gende language. So they don't understand it, but they're, participating and, the way tourists do when they're in a foreign country, just, and enjoying. And of course, Touchberry is eating like crazy. And it gets later and later, and the festivities grow more and more solemn, right? It grows quieter. And in the lead up to midnight, the last hour before midnight, it is quite still. People simply staring into the fire. The only real motions are the fire tenders getting up and making sure it is burning. Okay. The moon rises, big and full. And then at midnight, one of the villagers stands up and blows upon a ram's horn trumpet. And all eyes shift to the cemetery. Now at first, they don't see anything. And then, one by one, over the graves appear the shimmering forms of skeletal ghosts. Now, the only skeletons I have weapons in their hands because, that's cool, right? But these ghosts don't. And they begin to walk. One of them is clearly the leader. Another is clearly the first mate of sorts, the captain and first mate. And down through the village they come, and across the open space, and begin walking down the dock. Now at the end of the dock, a man has been standing. The entire celebration, he's been standing there. And as the ghostly skeletons approach, he calls out, "The ship! The ship!" And sure enough, there it is, appearing out of the darkness, gliding up to the dock, under its own power. No creature, no being steering it. It comes to the end of the dock. And then each ghostly skeleton proceeds down the length of the dock, turns, and in silence hands a coin to the harbor master at the end, who collects coin after coin, puts them in his pouch, and skeletons board. Now, this is going on, the players are all... And then the old man says, "You must go now or you will miss it." Okay. And they run onto the dock. And of course the man at the end is like, "You're gonna what?" But they hand him a silver coin, and they get on the ship. As they get on the ship, the skeletal figures turn and look at them, and then look away. And the ship begins to move, gliding over the water, silently, almost without moving. It's as if the world is slipping past, instead of them slipping through the world. They head out into the great northern sea. It's not a long trip. Before them looms a darker shape, Giant's Tomb Island. And the ship comes to that island where a half-rotted dock sticks out into the water. And it stops. And the skeletons begin to get off. As the last departs, it is the first mate. He turns and speaks.
You cannot stay on the ship.
Oh, no problem. They get out of the boat, head down the dock to where the skeletons have assembled, and the captain now looks at them and says,
Midnight on the morrow.
Midnight on the morrow. Okay, so tomorrow, midnight, we have to be back here. I think he means we have to be back here because they're going to leave. The captain nods, turns, and leads the company into the forest. The island is thickly forested, right? And so the skeletons walk in, and for a while, the party follows until the skeletons simply vanish in front of them. They have no idea where they've gone, what dark purpose brings them here. They have no idea. And frankly, neither do I. But I don't need to, because it's cool anyway. All right. Well, now what? Well, let's look for the Giant's Tomb. Now, Giant's Tomb Island, the real one and the one in the game, because it's the same island, has in the midst of it this lump, this raised area, which is, the tomb, supposedly. And so we'll make for that, clearly. We'll make for that. And there's enough moonlight, because it is a full moon, there's enough moonlight they can find it. So through the woods they go. And of course I'm rolling for yeah, okay. Let's go into the Giant's Tomb after having had a random encounter fight, eh? Well, maybe it's not a fight. Maybe it'll be something they can reason with. Maybe it'll be something they can negotiate. Animal. No. Not a lot of negotiation there. But Bob Johnny does have a ring of animal control. Maybe he'll remember it this time. Oh! Out of the underbrush, where they hear a rustling and a deep guttural jump. 5 giant toads! I don't know why giant toads are scary. Like it's a toad. But somehow it's just unnerving. And so these 5 giant toads jump out, and there's no negotiating with them. And Bob Johnny forgets his ring, and so there's a fight. He wouldn't be able to control many of them anyway, because with giants, I think it's just one giant creature. I'd have to read up about it, but it's no point because he forgot he had the thing. They just decide to fight. Well, no. 3 of them decide to fight. Touchberry decides he's going to try to make one into a friend, into a pet. He's going to try to tame a giant toad. Okay, I guess I could roll a reaction roll. I mean, there's going to be a penalty because it's a toad. No, it wants to eat you. It wants to eat you. So for 2 rounds, he tries to just dodge and hold the toad at bay while talking soothingly to it. That's what he says. He's going to soothe the toad while the toad tries to eat him. And meanwhile, the others are engaged in combat. Fofire gets chomped a couple of times. She's not doing terribly. She's got bad armor class is what it is. She's a thief. She can only wear leather. Her dex does give her a bonus, but not enough. She gets chomped a couple times. Anyway, the fight's going on, and other toads are being killed, being scared away. One of them takes a lot of damage, and I roll, and it's a morale check, and it takes off, right? And finally, Touchberry has decided this toad isn't going to, listen to his soothing voice, so he decides to jump on top of it, right? Now, he's done this before, jumped on top of creatures, and actually, earlier in the battle, Bob Johnny jumped on one of them, and so now I've got to, well, what do you do when you jump on a toad, right? The toad's going to jump itself. It's gonna keep hopping, and you're likely to be shaken off. So on the fly, I just say, great, okay. A dex check to see if you make the first initial grab and land on it. They both succeed. All right. Every round, the toad is going to hop, and I will roll a d20, and you will roll a d20, and whoever gets highest wins. If I win, the toad shakes you off. If you win, you stay clamped on. And for 4 rounds, Bob Johnny stays on this toad. Yeehaw! And I think it's 3 rounds, and he jumped on 2 rounds later, so it's a bit of an overlap there. But for 3 rounds, Touchberry stays on the toad, but eventually they're both shaken. I mean, it's inevitable. Eventually you're going to get a mismatch in the dice. And so they're thrown, And one of the toads then makes a morale check and runs away because that was just too much. The other one decides to take vengeance on Touchberry, and Touchberry ends up having to just kill the toad because, come on. Right. Well, that was an interesting waste of time. Toads don't carry treasure and they're not worth that much experience, but it certainly was fun anyway. Okay, well, let's keep going. Wiping the toad blood off of their weapons, they continue trudging through the forest toward the rise of ground. As they approach this rise, they see ahead of them in the forest what looks like almost a white X. What is that ahead of us? The elves can see a lot better. It's a statue. it's a WWF statue from the Dollar Tree. I have no idea who the wrestler is. He looks like this now, but I painted him up, Tried to cover up on the base. There's a WWF logo that's etched in, so, tried to cover that up. Anyway, they come across this statue, and it's a large statue. This is a giant's tomb. It's not a giant-sized statue, but it's pretty large. It's bigger than human size. So they see that, and they're all like, stay away from it. It's going to come alive and kill us. Does it have gems for eyes? Don't touch them if he does. No, it doesn't have gems for eyes. All right. They avoid it entirely. It was just a statue. It's just there for color. Behind that statue, as this statue is on the rise going up, behind it, at the crest of the hill, there is the ruins of a tower. I do want to mention that this tower, as well as the graveyard we used, were crafted by Fleetwood, by my eldest. And this tower, actually, he made a year and a half ago, something like that. A long while ago he made it. It was his first terrain piece. So anyway, I thought it would be useful for this. It was kind of cool. It's just the shell of the tower. It's all broken down. It's a tree growing inside of it. But there's also a hole in the floor. A squared hole with a staircase going down. All right, let's go down.